So I decided to move to UNB or move to Fredericton to go to UNB. And I took film as an elective because it was something that I'd always been kind of interested in as a writer and a theater kid and you know, it lined up with my interests. And then Tony Merzetti was my first teacher. And we made a movie in Tony's class that is one of, if not the worst movies ever made. And it was the most fun. And I said, "This is it. This is what I want to do." So when I finished school, I started working at the film co-op,
Cool.
and that was 600 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you've been president for quite a while.
I think I've been on the board for like 11 years or 12 years or something like that. So,
Yeah, so
but
it's
I joined the film co-op for the first time in 2006.
2006. Wow. Um, do you enjoy being president?
It's okay. Of course I do. Um, the thing I like the most about being president is I get to talk to a lot of the membership in a way that I don't think I would have had the opportunity to otherwise. Um, People will come to me if they have questions or problems or ideas, or I've had a lot of really interesting conversations with people, and I think when people tell me things, I can bring it to the board and try to make things better, help people improve their experience, that sort of thing.
Hmm. That's great. So let's take off your president's hat for a minute and let's talk about your filmmaking. Because you're a busy filmmaker, but you also help a lot of other people too. So when you're working on a film, whether it's your own or someone else's, what's your favorite part? I know you're an AD on film projects, and then of course you've done producing for other people, but for your own projects, we'll start with that. What's your favorite part? Is it the conception, like of an idea? Is it the screenwriting, pre-production, production, distribution? Like, what is it that really gets you going?
Well, I'm a writer first. I'll always be a writer first, and I love writing. Um, and that's always really a fun thing. But writing is very solitary. I do it alone in my, well, right, literally where I am right now. Sometimes my cat will join me, but usually it's just me. And it's usually really late at night. And it's very quiet, very, um, I get really immersed in the story, which is a lot of fun, but it's very solitary. And my favorite part about filmmaking is the collaboration of it. Especially, I love working with actors. That's my favorite part. Um, I'm less interested in the technical side. Um, it's not as important to me, but having the connection with my actors and then taking the story that I made and bringing it to life and working with them to make the characters feel fleshed out and real and authentic is it's just really fun.
Hmm. And I know for the like you're an actor's director, but I know for the technical stuff, like what I've seen with your projects are you tend to surround yourself with people who are really good at those technical things. So they've got your back, right?
Oh
Technically.
yeah, I think Gia Milani said this, that the director is quite often the least experienced person on set, because if you're a camera person, you do that all year round. Whereas if you're directing, you're probably only doing one project at a time. And so your camera person might have done 15 projects this year and you've only done one. So, but yeah, there's a lot of really talented technical people that I'm just like, I want it to look like this. And they go, "Oh, I know what you mean." And they can go and make it happen. And I'm like, "Yes, that's what I meant. I don't know how you knew that, but yes, that's what I meant." Repetition helps. Working with finding people that you can communicate effectively with and then stick with them is helpful.
Hmm.
Sorry, it's really cold in my office. I feel like I'm moving around a lot, but it's cold in here.
Do you want to put on a sweater or a blanket? We don't want you to
Oh, I
freeze.
have a blanket.
Okay.
My office is over my garage, so it's always cold,
Oh,
and so I'm just trying to get climatized. It's fine.
okay. Um, so why is it so important for you to tell your own stories and get them out in the world? Why is that? Because it's a big deal because you're constantly making your own films.
Um, Part of it is because this this is the spiritual side of it. If I don't write, I will die. I'm a storyteller. It is part of my soul. I have to do it. There are times where I've had scripts or stories or characters that have just been like, I can feel it here and I carry them with me and I have to let it out because otherwise it will just suffocate me. So, but then why I make films specifically is because it's so much fun being on set, watching all these, being around creative people creating is a really cool place to be. So,
Hmm. And I know, well, I just know from working with you and also other people saying that you're incredibly organized. And I think you've proven to me that it doesn't have to be hell to work on a film shoot. Like if you're organized, it actually can be a positive experience. So kudos to you for that. Now, I've talked to some members about you, Britt. Your ears must be burning. So these are the words that people said a lot about you. Again, this feels like this is your life, but I know it's not. Focused, organized, and fun. Do you yourself think of yourself in that way?
I do. Um, those are the things that I try to be. Those are the things that I want to be. Um, I mean, I have a day job where I organize other people's messes for a living. Jules can speak to that because Jules does the same thing. Um, I'm an archivist, so I make order out of chaos, and that's like my favorite thing to do, like of all time, is just put things into neat little boxes and make everything make sense. So that's part of why I think I like being organized. But also, I've been on like I think I've worked on like over 75 projects. And the ones that were the most fun are the ones where people had things planned and knew what they were doing and there weren't going by the seat of their pants. Like, I'm a big believer that if you plan for the things that you can control, then when the things that you can't control pop up, you're better equipped to deal with it. So if you know what time you're being fed and you know what your shot list is for the day and you know what time the actors are arriving and then it rains, you can pivot for that. Whereas if you don't have all of that other information, then you're panicking and trying to pivot for something and it ends up just being chaos. I've never really actively pursued filmmaking as a career. It's always something that I've done on the side. And so, why would I want to do something that wasn't fun? And there's been times where projects have gotten to the point where they weren't fun. And then I've stepped back and said, I need to not work on film for a little bit because it's not fun anymore. And that's why you do it. But even the people that do it for money, like, if you don't love it, like really, really love it, it's not worth it because the hours are long, the pay is not always good, it's hard to find consistent work. But if you love it, then none of that matters. So I
Hmm.
think you have to have that like drive and that desire to create. Otherwise, you can't really find time for it, I think.
Hmm. And I think I've talked to you at different points in your, your filmmaking career, and you have gotten burned out. And you had to take that step back and just, chill out, and then you came back stronger than ever.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing too, is recognizing when you're burning out, because if you let it go too far, then you can't come back, and recognizing that you're burnt out and then taking time and then you start to miss it. And it's if you burn yourself out too hard, then you don't miss it and then you might not come back. So I
Hmm.
think it's recognizing it. And at the beginning, when I first started, I was working on like 10 projects a year and I was burnt out all the time. And I was like, but I can't stop because if I don't stop, I'll never get another film job. And I'm like, no, I will. And I'll be happier if I calm down and take a step back. And I'm a little more selective about the projects that I do now too, I think. I'm getting older. I
Hmm.
don't want to be on set all the time. I like being home with my cats. So, um, you know, people are like, "Oh, we're going to shoot and it's going to be a 14-hour day and we're going to shoot overnight in the middle of the woods." And I'm like, "No, I think I'm good."
I hear you. Yeah, that does not sound as appealing as it used
I've
to
no,
me before.
I've been on shoots like that and they were great, but now I'm just like the thought of staying up that late is just like then I have to go to work on Monday and it's like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah. So, do you have a film superpower? Like something that sets you aside or a special skill that I mean, it just feels like you're putting on that cape and those tights and you're flying in, right?
I think the boring answer is that I'm very organized. Um, I'm probably organized to a fault. There's probably things that I overthink about. Um, but the more fun answer that I'm going to say is I think I have figured out the balance between taking it seriously but not taking myself seriously. I make a lot of comedies, but even when I make dramas, it's still you've got to give the film the respect that it deserves, and you've got to give the people that you're working with the respect they deserve. Um, especially especially actors. Actors deserve all the credit, all the respect, all the love. They do things that are absolutely amazing. Um, and so you've got to treat it all with respect. But on the same token, like I said, I do it because it's fun. And so I try to set a pace where it's like I'm having fun. And if other people are stressed out, then I'm doing something wrong because I want to schedule, short days with lots of time, give the actors the space they need, give everybody fun to goof around and make jokes while you're setting up. I've been on sets before where you're so far behind schedule that it's just nope, no time to stop, no time to chat, just go, go, go. We got to get this done. And I don't like working like that, especially for things that are supposed to be enjoyable. So I try to keep the energy positive. I try to keep the mood good. I try to keep everything light and you know, so that. And
So,
people have said that to me. They're like, your shoots are always fun because I don't. I try not to be like so intense and so focused all the time. I'm like, no, like we're making movies. This is awesome. We should be stoked all the time.
so this question's a little deeper. I talk to different filmmakers, and sometimes they tell me that they have these personal challenges that they have to overcome before every project. One filmmaker I know has deep anxiety. Just, they're pretty fearful before every shoot. There's just so much that they worry about. Do you have a personal challenge that you have to overcome before every shoot, like things that get to you?
Locations. I hate location scouting. It is I always have problems. My locations always fall through. They never turn out the way I want them to. Even when I'm like, I hire somebody to be my locations person, there's still problems. Locations are the worst. I'm like, I should just write movies that are set in my house and never shoot anything anywhere else because it's exhausting. Um, I don't have a lot of I usually don't have a lot of fear going shooting a project. It's screening it after the fact because I make a lot of comedies and a lot of my friends make really impactful, powerful, meaningful dramas about sexual assault and abuse and overcoming amazing obstacles, and they're very powerful and impactful. And then I'm like, I made a movie about two friends going camping and it was silly. And sometimes I have like really bad imposter syndrome where I'm like, how is my film screening in the same screening as all of these other amazing people, and my film is not on this level? And I'll never forget, Tracy Levine said to me once, all of our films are so depressing. If we didn't have your film in the middle of this, everybody would just like go home in tears. Like, we need your humor to lighten up the screening. And so I know that there's a place for humor. I know that there's a place for light comedic films, but sometimes I go through that struggle where I think I should be making more serious stories. But I think even my comedies have, they always have a message and they always have heart to them. So I think that matters, but I forget that sometimes.
Yeah. So, Britt, out of all your films that you've made, what is your favorite film personally?
I can't pick because they're all so special.
You
They're my
gotta.
they're my babies. Okay, I'm gonna say two. There's nine of them. I'm gonna say two.
Okay.
Um, my first film will always have a really special place in my heart. I look at it. We shot it in SD. It's like really grainy and low quality, and the lighting isn't great, and none of us knew what we were doing. But the fact that when I first joined the film co-op, my intention was to be a writer and to write things and give them to directors to direct. And my mentor said to me, absolutely not. You have to direct your first one. And I was like, I don't know how to direct. And he said, I will help you. And so I did. And I was like, oh, actually, I love this. And so the number of people that have come to me with a script and have said, I want you to direct this. And I say, no, you have to direct your first film. And they say, I don't know how. And I say, I will help you. And it's very much come full circle. But the perfect cliche will always be so special to me because it's not something that I ever thought that I could do. And it was the beginning of, like, literally the beginning of the rest of my life. Like it was it's so corny, but like it will always hold this really, really, plus it's a really, I find most people's first film is usually a pretty personal story. So I think that's part of it as well. And then my most recent film, Stand By You, I think it is the best script I've ever written. I think it's very funny and punchy, but also um, like I think the scene at the end where they're sitting on the steps and having a heart to heart is some of my favorite dialogue that I've ever written. And it's acted so well. All three of them are just absolutely killer. Um, yeah, so I think I'll go with that.
Um, you have been a producer for other people's films. What stories are you drawn to that other people are doing that you would produce for them?
Usually, I'm more drawn to the people than the stories specifically. I don't know. I really like working with first time filmmakers who don't know what they're doing, and because I say I had somebody step up and say I will help you, and I've always felt like a calling to be that for other people. So I really like working with first time filmmakers. Honestly, a lot of the time, I would rather work with people that I really like than people that are really talented or a script that is really good. I would rather work with people that I know have a similar attitude and approach to it, people that are going to take it seriously, but not too seriously, people who are organized, people, it's more about the filmmaker than it is about the story. But I will say, I love working with people who are making comedies. Comedies are like my favorite. And hardly anybody make comedies anymore.
True.
Most people in the last little while have either gone horror or like really, really serious drama.
Mm.
Um, Although I have to say, I don't like watching horror movies, but being a part of making them is really fun because you get to do some really weird and neat things. Two of the three films that I've produced that I didn't direct are horror films, and they were both so much fun.
Are you looking to produce for anyone in the future?
I mean, I've done more mentorship than producing, which is sometimes the same thing and sometimes not. Um, I think it would have to be something pretty special for me to produce right now because I'm currently in pre-production for my first feature. So that is going to take up a ridiculous amount of my time for the next couple of years. So I definitely don't think I'm in a position right at this moment. But in the future, I could see maybe.
So this is a bit of a tough question, and mentioning no names, of course. You've worked on a lot of shoots. I'm sure there have been HR issues and problems, maybe egos, personalities, whatever. Um, is there a personal story you could tell us about something you faced and how you dealt with it?
Well, it's not a very fun story. On one of my shoots, we had a person on the shoot who is an old friend and somebody I'd worked with many times before, and we had a lot of extras on that day, and the extras were some of the younger female extras were really uncomfortable with the language and the tone of the way that this person talked to them. And I know the person, I know it's intended as joking and friendly camaraderie, but if you don't know this person, it can come across really creepy.
Hmm.
And so we had to ask him not to come back the second weekend, and it was a really difficult conversation to have. But you know, I fortunately I didn't actually have to have the face to face conversation because my production manager and my assistant director stepped in and did it, because they were like, you should be focusing on directing, you should not be focusing on these logistics, but we want you to know what's going on. And so we had to have that really hard conversation. um, and I don't know if they've worked on anything or much since then, because I don't think they're a lot of people had a negative reaction to it. So
Oh, that's really
it's
tough,
it is really tough.
especially when it's a friend,
Yeah,
someone that, and you see you know them, so you see the overall personality, but of course that's all people would see right on a shoot
yeah.
is just what they're doing.
Well, and it irritates me when they talk like that. So it's like I definitely can understand people who don't know them getting irritated by it. So it's hard. It's always one of the hard parts about working with your friends.
Hmm.
When stuff
Yeah,
like that
and
comes up, you have to step up and say something.
so did you have a favorite year at the film co-op? It was just a really great year for creating or making films or getting to know people. Was there a year or a couple of years that was a it was your time, it was Brittany's time?
Um, I don't know. I think the film co-op is very different now than it was when I first joined. Um, when I first joined, I was like 22, and a lot of the other members were my age, and we were all like, we'd we'd we all had like crappy day jobs at the mall, and then we'd work on each other's films on the weekend, and we were all working on a whole bunch of stuff all at the same time, and we were staying out really late, and then we'd have rap parties that were absolutely ridiculous. And like I have pictures of a friend of mine like in my fridge, like holding all of the condiments because it was so hot in my apartment that he was just like cuddling with like the mustard. It was like it's amazing. And it's the film co-op is very different now. A lot more people are having career success, I think, than when I first started out. Like when I first started out, one feature film would come to town and we'd all climb over each other to try to get on it. And the worst projects, the films were terrible. We worked way too long, but everybody was just glad to be getting paid to do film. Now I have a lot of friends that do it professionally, a lot more commercial, but everybody's using videos for things. And I know people that work for legitimate production companies, and it feels like there's a more um, I guess professional, and I mean professional in like a there is money involved professional. um, and so I think that kind of makes the shoots a little more serious, and it makes the filmmakers a little more serious, because it's not just let's make a movie for fun, it's I'm trying to build a brand for myself and I'm trying to get recognized. um, that being said, there are still great projects, great people to work with, still a lot of fun. But I think back when and I mean, part of it too is I think like I'm older now. A lot of the people that I made films with when I was in my 20s are, they all have kids now, and we've all got like real jobs now, and it's we're all in a different place in our lives where, you know, we don't, like I said, we don't want to be doing the camping in the middle of the woods and making a film at 4 in the morning in the winter. Like, that's just not fun anymore. um but yeah, I've always enjoyed my time with the film co-op, though. It's always good. I say we make movies. That's so cool.
That is
Whenever
cool.
whenever I tell people that, they're like, "You make movies? I didn't know people could do that." I'm like, "Yeah, I know so many people that do. It's awesome. You want to make a movie? I can tell you where to go." So one of my coworkers is like, "I think I want to make a movie." I'm like, "Yes, you should." They just wrote a book, and I'm like, "Yes, now you should make a movie. It's just the same."
Oh my God, they wrote a book?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, this question is going to catch you off guard because it wasn't in the list I sent you. This is hard, I know, but I need you to list your top 5 films, Britt. Come on.
Oh, just like in general?
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, How to Train Your Dragon.
I knew that was
Best movie
coming.
ever made. I love it so much. It is one of two things that I have tattooed on myself and named my cat after. That's how important it is to me. Number two, Peter Pan, directed by PJ Hogan from the 2003 live action. The cinematography and the music are absolutely stunning, and it is the absolutely perfect telling of Peter Pan as a love story between Peter and Wendy. Moulin Rouge, because Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman are incredible. The music is incredible, and it's just, I love Bollywood, so it has a real Indian cinema feel to it. Like the whole elephant scene is like incredible. Um, Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, one of the best movies ever made. It was nominated for like 11 Oscars. Changed the way that people make movies. It's so ridiculous. It's so fun. Every year on Valentine's Day, my best friend and I watch it and live tweet about how much we love it. And The Lion King.
That was pretty good for me throwing that at you.
I think about movies all the time, and I love movies so much. So it's very easy to rattle off 5 movies that I love.
Well, once we finish our in conversation, I'm going to go around the room and ask everyone, a favorite movie they have, just one, and I'll tell you mine right now. And Tony does not understand this, but I love science fiction and I love 2001: A Space Odyssey. To me, even though I don't fully understand it, I've watched it 50 times and it's like poetry in motion for me. I just think it's a beautiful film. And of course, Casablanca is another film that is just, it's a perfect script. There's no word that should not be, there's no dialogue that should not be in that story. So,
Casablanca is one of the most quoted movies of all time, and you don't even realize that it's from that. The first time I watched it, I think the year after I finished film school, I watched it because I hadn't watched it in school, and I'm like, I need to watch this movie. It's a classic. And I was like, oh, that line's from this movie. Oh, and so is that line. And like the number of like iconic quotes that are from Casablanca is ridiculous.
mm,
And I have never made it through 2001: Space Odyssey. I fall asleep every single time.
I know it's unfortunate. I feel
But
bad for people who don't
Rob wrote
get
a
it.
paper about it when
Oh,
he was in
really?
school. Yeah, Rob loves it.
I'll mention one more film, Silent Running, starring Bruce Dern. He's on, I guess it's a space station, and he's guarding the last forest from Earth, and it is an incredible film. Silent Running, if you get a chance to see that. So I guess you are a great person to give advice to people about getting into filmmaking. What advice would you give um, to people just how to get their engine going, how to get started? I guess joining the co op is a great idea, but what's
I
your
agree.
advice for newbies?
I have 3 bits of advice. Number one, keep your first script simple. So many people nowadays are making these master films with 50 locations and 100 extras and a million people on their crew, and it's a period piece and it's a war film and there's action scenes and there's special effects, and it's just like, my first film, we shot it in one day in one location with two actors, and there are 12 shots. You don't need to go completely all in on your first film. Make your first film simple, because you'll learn just as much and there's way less stakes. So if you make your first film simple, then you learn, and then you can make a more complicated one the next time.
Mm.
Number two, surround yourself by people that know what they're doing and that you trust. And it needs to be both of those things, because if they're people that you trust but they don't know what they're doing, then nothing will happen. And if they're people that know what they're doing but you don't trust, you won't learn anything from them, and it won't be a collaborative experience. Um, and number three, just do it. Don't be afraid. Just do it. Anybody can do it now. The 48-hour film competitions are a really, really great way to get your feet wet if you don't know what you're doing, because you've got 48 hours and you just kind of fumble through it until, and then at the end you're like, I have a movie, I don't know how, but it's here. But just, go out and shoot something on your cell phone. Like, back in my day, before we had iPhones, like, we had to go to the film co-op and get equipment. You don't need to do that anymore. You can shoot it and edit it entirely on your phone. Um, a friend of mine is doing a film a month for the whole year, and so she's making these like 30-second films that she's filming on her phone, and they're super cool. And like, it's you can do it. Just do it. Just try, and you'll learn every time you make a film, you'll learn something that you didn't know before. So keep doing it.
That's great advice. So I can't think of anything else, Britt, unless you wanted to mention anything else before we take questions.
No, I want questions.
Ah, so before we start asking questions, we're going to quickly go around the room. That's if people want to. You don't have to. And ask people just one favorite film they have. So maybe we'll start with Jeremy up at the top. What's your favorite film? Is that a hard question? Am I being fair? Am I wrong?
It's a near impossible question, but I'll make an attempt at it. I like all kinds of different films for different reasons, but the kinds of films that I most like and most resonate with are the ones that cause me to feel something, or they communicate something that resonates with me on an emotional level. They communicate a feeling that I've had or a question that I've asked myself. I don't remember where the quote is from, but I really liked it. It says that the role of the artist is not to take life and turn it into poetry, but to take poetry and to turn it into life. And I really found that really interesting.
Mm.
And in the context of that, there's a film director in a film that I really admire a lot. It's a Korean film. The director is Lee Chang-dong, and the movie is called Poetry. I think it came out in 2010, but it's basically about an elderly woman who starts to develop an interest in poetry while she's struggling with Alzheimer's disease. So the whole movie is this sort of journey of her trying to figure out and understand what is a poem and trying to sort of write one at the same time. And she takes a class, and we get to meet a lot of other people who are interested in trying to craft and write poems. But it's, I don't know, it's very human and moving and even kind of suspenseful.
Oh,
So I really like that movie and recommend it. Poetry, Lee Chang-dong.
poetry. Thank you, Jeremy. That's intriguing. I want to see that film. So we'll go to the dynamic duo. I think they know who they are. Can you each tell us your favorite film?
Yeah, sure. Of course, it's a really hard question. But for me, I think one of my top ones would be Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. It might be because I'm a photographer and, you know, the main guy is a photographer. Or I'm a bit of a voyeur too, and it's just very,
Cool.
but it's also really cool that it just takes place in one set throughout the entire time. So yeah, I like that.
Michael?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if it's just like kind of a phase thing going on, but like right now I'm still obsessed with Bo Burnham's Inside.
So good.
So good. Just the and like all the different mediums, like every factor into that. From obviously the communication with music, and the lighting and the way that it is just straight up a documentation of one man's vision and experience throughout the pandemic. It's just so good.
Very cool. Thank you. Keith?
Um, yeah, I've been thinking this whole time, and like I feel like I need a list and pick one from it. It's so hard. But in spirit of talking with Britany, I'm gonna say that I generally enjoy movies from Edgar Wright because there's some humor in it.
Yes.
He's very intelligent with his camera work and like his comedy and his timing. So yeah, definitely Edgar Wright movies.
Yes, yes, yes. All of the S. I love Edgar Wright so much. He's brilliant.
Super cool. Thank you, Keith. Okay, Ron, if you're able to unmute, we'd love to hear your favorite film if you have one. If you can't, it's okay.
Yes, back in the 60s, the only movies I would see would be on our one channel on TV, and they were always Westerns. And I found them to be old fashioned and poorly written, but it's all we had until I saw Clint Eastwood direct Outlaw Josie Wales. And that was a pleasant surprise. The script was magnificent. His directing was great. The acting was great. And I was so pleased to see a Western could be turned into something very, very good. So, other than Planet of the Apes, which was my first movie that I actually saw in a theater, so that one has a special place. But I would say The Outlaw Josie Wales was the biggest surprise I ever had in a movie.
Very good. Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
I've seen that. Okay, Brandon, you're up if you want to be.
Oh, I'm always up and ready for the challenge.
Your favorite?
So, favorite film. I like a lot of films. I like the Transformer films because they're amazing. The visual effects are fantastic. Now, don't get me wrong. Michael Bay, I know he had a great run with the Transformers, but after seeing the Bumblebee film, I was like, yes, this is amazing. And then, of course, the big news about Rise of the Beasts coming up next year. It's going to be so much fun. It's basically, you know, our heroic Autobots interacting with their descendants, the Maximals. Basically like transforming animals. Basically, like we got Optimus Primal, the leader of the Maximals, against whoever the bad guy is, because we don't know if it's going to be Megatron. We don't know. It's going to be amazing. I'm curious to see what's going to take place in Rise of the Beast. So the Transformer films really appeal to me for some reason. It just really does. They're shape shifting and and mechanics. It's just amazing, really.
Oh, that's cool. And nobody blows up shit like Michael Bay, I must say.
No.
That guy yeah, I mean, whenever I see something, I know his name is coming in the credits, like the trailer. So
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for that, Brandon.
I'll disclaimer. He's not directing Rise of the Beast.
Oh,
It's
he's not. Okay.
he's not. It's someone else. Someone else directed the Bumblebee film, which Travis Knight. He did it very well. So
Okay, thanks, Brandon. So
you're
we better
welcome.
speed this up, or poor Brittany won't be able to take any questions. So maybe just name your film, your top film, and I see people don't have their cameras on, so I don't want to put them on the spot. I'll just would someone else like to tell us their favorite film?
You can put them in the chat too if you want. Woman in the
Yeah.
Dunes,
Woman,
Lydia
oh,
says.
that's a great film. Great choice, Lydia. Yeah, you can put your choice in the chat if you prefer. Um, if you don't prefer, that's okay too.
Yeah,
I'll get it out of them eventually. We've got years to go.
I'm a big fan of movies that are fun. Like, I mean, I say I think making movies should be fun. I also think going to the movies should be fun. I just recently rewatched the new Jumanji movie, and I went to see it, and I was like, "This is gonna be really dumb." And then I saw it, and I was like, "Okay, this movie is way more fun than it had any right to be, and I'm obsessed with it." Um, People take movies very seriously, and that's wonderful, and beautiful stories have come out of it. But I like movies that are like absolutely insane and hilarious and fun. So
Yeah, I like all kinds of films too. I have to admit, I do like a lot of what people consider heavy, depressing, dark, and I do like really weird films as well. But that's okay. Oh, I see. Enchanted April is wonderful for actors, cinematography, and a lot of fun. Happy 50th birthday, The Godfather. Of course, I love The Godfather. Um, this is a new member. I don't know if you'd like to speak. I want to pronounce your name correctly.
Hi, Kat. It's
Hi.
Anvish. It's Anvish.
Yes, and so you've got King
So
Richard by Will Smith. I heard that is quite good.
yeah, it's hard to pick top one movies, especially from the background where I come from. I'm from India, and you might have all known like people are literally go crazy about movies, and especially I have a huge favor of Hollywood, Bollywood, Indian, whatnot. So, but the reason one I would say it's King Richard. It's such a beautiful movie for me. I mean, it's so amazing. The special part about the movie is you have biopics coming up in most recent times. It revolves around the story of Serena Williams, the famous tennis player, and his father. Uh, the director maintained the composure, the balance of showing how great the father character is in her life, and also making sure he elevated and given the importance of both the sisters who showed the struggle and stuff. It's like beautiful movie so far.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a family movie to a large degree. I can't wait to see it. He just won the Oscar for it too, so
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies when I was in film school was we watched World Cinema, and we watched an older Bollywood film called Sholay, and it
Oh
is
yeah.
like I love that movie so much, and it's like it's a comedy, and then it's like a buddy cop film, and then it's like there's like a train robbery, and there's a part where they're making fun of Charlie Chaplin, and then like this guy gets his arms cut off, and then he like beats a guy to death with his feet, and like it's ridiculous and emotional. This guy like gets drunk and threatens to jump off a water tower if a girl won't go out with him. Like it's so good. And then it goes like hilarious, really serious, like in a second. It's so cool. I think it's from like I think it was shot in the 70s, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
80s, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah,
so
I can tell a lot about Indian movies, but since we're running out of time, yeah.
Mm.
anybody else before we take questions that hasn't spoken who would like to speak? Okay. Well, for questions you can say them out loud or you can also put them in the chat and I'm happy to ask Britt. But does anybody have any earth-shattering questions? It's very dramatic. I mean, Brittany covered a lot, didn't she? She knows how to answer a question or two or three or four.
I can talk about movies literally forever. So
What was your first short story about that
my
you wrote when you were 7?
oh, I'll show you. Just one sec.
Oh my God, she still has it. That's cool. Hopefully she's not going to the basement where there's like a trunk with all this stuff. We could be here a while. Oh, Stand By Me. Thank you, Mara. Stand By Me. That is a beautiful film. River Phoenix's performance was so good. Yeah, that was an incredible film.
I'm an archivist. I keep everything.
You sure do. Oh my God, that's your story?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's called Killy and Dolphin, and it's about a killer whale and a dolphin who are babies and best friends.
That is really cute.
Yep.
Because you're a baby, so you're writing about other babies.
Yep.
Who did you cast as the dolphin?
I don't know. Maybe you could play the dolphin.
That's really funny. So,
But yeah.
Here's a question from Keith Dury, a member. Where do you get your story ideas from?
Everywhere. But to be specific, I'm inspired by music a lot. I saw Simple Plan perform at like the opening night of Hockey Night in Canada and in Montreal, and they played the song Jet Lag, and I went, oh, there's a film in here, and then I made a film about it. A lot of times it's music, a lot of the time it's characters as well. Sometimes the character will come to me and then I'll want to find a story to put them in. But yeah, I'm very, very inspired by music a lot of the time. My feature film is called Still Your Song, which is a Goo Goo Dolls song, and the Goo Goo Dolls song is very much the theme of the song is very much reflected in the theme of the film. Yeah.
I've got a question from Jeremy. Here's a question. I wonder about strategies for putting together a team, especially considering that the co-op members are spread out across the province.
I think that that's complicated now, because when I was first starting out, everybody was in Fredericton. Everybody that I made films with was like people that I hung out with on the weekend. So I think nowadays, I think in some ways it's easier because you don't have to come to Fredericton to get equipment. A lot of times people will have their own equipment, or there's members in town that you can borrow equipment from. Like there's production companies in Moncton and St. John and members that have cameras and lights and stuff. So that's not as important. I think the film co-op tries really hard to connect members together. So if you're looking to connect with somebody in your area and you don't know anybody, Kathy knows everybody, so she'll have a list and she can connect people with each other. But also sometimes I just like used to rope in people that weren't involved in film. I'm like, hey, you're my friend, come be in my movie, and I would like make them act in it or something. So I think there's lots of people that would be willing to give it a try and didn't know that they could. So sometimes you can just rope people in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do have in your area, Jeremy, I've actually connected quite a few members to each other, and there are people who have equipment as well. But I mean, if someone's willing, you know, if they're a full member in good standing and they're willing to come and get maybe some extra gear that they need, some specialty items, it's all doable. But typically, I work directly with people to really help them with that, because you're right, it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, you know, as you say, you've said in another workshop, it they become your family. So you are looking for a film family, which is, that's what I'm always looking for too, people that I feel a kinship with. So if you ever want to talk about it more, I'm happy to help you with that. I'd love to see
Also,
you do it.
some people travel.
Yeah, they do.
I've worked on projects in Moncton and St. John, and I'm not currently in a situation where I think I could do that, but in the future, you know, I've got friends in Moncton that have come here and worked on stuff, and I've gone there to work on stuff. So sometimes it's just about when you connect with people, you put the time in. Actually, a filmmaker that I'm working with this year lives in Sussex. Does Chris live in Sussex?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, and especially now with things like Zoom, you can do all of your planning remotely, and then you only have to get together for the actual shoot. So that's something that I think COVID has helped the film community by making us talk to each other online, which
Yeah.
lets us talk to people in different cities a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think I had two people from St. John who came down and worked on my music video. I mean, the music video was just for one day, but I'm surprised at the people that are willing to travel, and I just covered their gas.
My last film, I had people come up from St. John.
Mm,
Yeah, I had two people come from St. John to do my last film. So yeah, people do travel too. That's the other thing.
yeah, if they love you, they're gonna
Yep.
come. And I could see them falling in love with Jeremy. So we'll work on that, Jeremy. So here's another question. Throughout, this is from Brandon. Throughout your many productions, which locations, oh my God, not locations, were the easiest and the hardest to acquire? Brittany's like going into traumatic shock.
No, I've shot in my house before. That's always the easiest. Or like, my friend's house. The hardest, I guess, I had a problem. It's finding locations that are not your house. I think they're all equally hard because I'm really bad at asking people for things. And then people are sometimes, I get really annoyed when people don't follow up. So you ask and they don't answer, and then you ask again and they don't answer, and you're like, okay, I need to know. If the answer is no, that's fine. Just tell me so that I can move on to something else. But I guess I will say the biggest problem that I ever had was a breakdown of communication between myself, my production manager, and the location, where we showed up to film and they were like, actually, you didn't do the things we said we needed you to do, so you can't film here. So I had to find a new location, and I had this was one of my biggest productions where I had the most people. So they're all showing up and I'm standing on the sidewalk, like trying not to have a complete meltdown because I don't have a location. And my assistant director showed up and I was like, what do we do? And she's like, we call Kat and Tony. And we called Kat and Tony and they helped us find another location. But
I don't even
always,
remember. I don't remember that. Gosh.
yeah.
Oh, Brittany, that is horrible. That's happened to so many members though, where they thought they had something booked and then they couldn't get in, and I mean it really throws you off.
Yep. Well, that was my whole day. I'm like, okay, now what? And we were behind the whole rest of the day.
Oh,
I hate locations. I hate them so much.
okay,
Just
so
film everything in your house
that's
or
so
Kat's house.
yeah, sure. So Keith is in Moncton, so I think he's saying to Jeremy, "I'm in Moncton, represent." So I'll connect you two, and then Mara, who is very polite, has her hand up. Go ahead, Mara.
Hi. I just actually today got accepted into a screenwriting program for university.
Oh,
And
awesome.
thank you. And I was just wondering, like, as someone who's very focused on the writing part of it, all like, do you have lots of experience or any experience in a more like formal writing setting like that? And any like, I guess, if you do or don't, doesn't really matter. Would you have any kind of suggestions or like things you could say would help someone in a setting like that as someone who more writes in their own time for fun?
Well, I mean, my degree is in creative writing, so I did study it in school, but that was a long time ago. Like, is it more like tips on writing or tips on like finding time to write, or
I guess writing for film in a more in less of a fun on your own time way and more of a feeling like it's a formal setting, I guess.
yeah. I don't know. To me, I guess last year I gave myself a week to do I did a writer's retreat and tried to make it more structured and more formal. Um, I just love writing, and whenever I get the opportunity to do it, um, it's fun. So even when I'm doing it under timelines or deadlines or restrictions or whatever, I just love doing it so much that I don't really find it I don't know, I find it easy to do. So yeah, I guess go into it treating it like a job, but also don't forget to enjoy doing it, because creating is supposed to be fun. And if you're not having fun while you're creating, your work will show that. So yeah, love it even when it's work.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think too, Brittany mentioned a writer's retreat. Now that you're getting into formally studying writing, be like Brittany and take writer's retreats. We usually are promoting things that are going on in Nova Scotia and PEI, and writers do travel. They take online courses, they travel to different places and take in-person formal screenwriting courses, and they also take workshops through the co-op that are focused on screenwriting. So I think you'll get the best of all those worlds. Um, but Brittany has a really good point. Like writer retreats are really great too.
Mhm.
So I think
I think there was another question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was me.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so Brittany, I've watched both your films. I think it's Chopstick and the other one is Friend Zone.
Oh, great. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so great.
So
See,
just
that's when Kat said pick your favorite movies. I'm like, there's 9 of them. I can't pick a favorite because I love both of those movies so much.
yeah, I the important thing I liked in both of the movies is the way you captured the emotion, especially in the Chopstick.
Yes.
So as a director, as a fresher who really wants to direct something kind of similar story, like what would be the check boxes that when you're trying to show an emotion to the audience, what are the check boxes as a director to make sure they gonna feel it, like the audience gonna feel, especially for the emotions.
Yeah. So my first bit of advice is cast the best people you can cast. I was lucky to have Elizabeth and Andrew, who are both absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
I
it
wrote
makes
the
sense.
parts for them. I really like Elizabeth as an actor that I'd wanted to work with before. She's absolutely incredible. So I wrote that specifically for her. And then when I was writing the second half of it, I was like, there was a Andrew, and the other actor's name is Andrew. He plays the bad guy a lot, and I wanted him to play the good guy. So I wrote this for the two of them to do together. So my approach to working with actors, first of all, cast good actors, because then your job is easy. But also, I spend a lot of time with them in pre-production talking about who their characters are, how the relationship works, what they do for a living, how they take their coffee, so that they know they can embody the character and they can embody the relationship, and so then the relationship feels more authentic and genuine. And then I just get them to feel it. And then I like to keep the camera in close. I like to give them silences. That's something actually Andrew taught me, is every time I gave him a new draft of the script, he would say, I have too many lines. I would like, my character wouldn't talk this much. Like, and so the scene at the end where they make up after their fight, I'd written like 2 pages of dialogue and I took out all of it, because I'm like, they don't need to say anything. It's all just in a look. And so I just, when you're working with talented actors, they can feel it so that you can see it. And you have to give them that space to do that. That's the other thing. Give them time and give them space. Don't like, okay, we got 2 minutes, get this. Like, give them the whole, like in Friend Zone, the scene where they wake up together and they have that awkward banter, we had a whole day to shoot that. Because I was like, the whole movie rests on this scene, and believing the awkwardness and believing the energy and the feeling of the scene. So we spent a whole day filming it. And I'm like, I just kept saying to them over again, like, you know your characters, you know the story, just feel it and we will see it.
Sounds great. That was really helpful.
Thank you.
So we're at 8:04, and I'd really like to, I hate to go too late, but Lydia had something. Britt, if you could answer her briefly. Besides location and casting, do you think it's important to always have a good story? I've heard this stressed by everyone giving workshops.
I mean, I'm a writer. Of course I'm going to say yes. Everything I do is based on the story and the script. I don't think, to me, it doesn't matter what lenses you use or how expensive your camera is. It doesn't even really matter how, who your actors are or who, what the music is like. If the story doesn't work, everything else is just piling on top of garbage. And it's okay when you're writing for your script to not be good on your first draft and your second draft and your third draft, as long as you keep working on it, and eventually you'll get something that makes sense. I think feedback is really important. I always try to get I just did a table read last night. I had, I think, 12 people give me feedback on my feature film, because I need feedback from people to know what's working and what's not working. And you have to trust yourself and trust your story when somebody tells you something that you don't think is right, that doesn't work with what you want. But sometimes even just having people tell you this isn't working lets you know that what's in your head is not coming across on the page. But yeah, I think the story is the most important part. I think if you don't have a strong story, it's like you can't build a house without a foundation. It doesn't matter what you put on it. If the foundation's not good, it'll fall down. So I think that's true of films as well. And I think that's something, even just like when you watch a film, the things that you remember is the story and the characters and the way it made you feel. And if the story doesn't make you feel something, then it's not successful.
Oh, thank you very much, Britany. That's a great note, I think, to end on. Britany, thank you so much. This was a pleasure. And thanks everyone for coming and engaging. Yeah, I see people thanking you in the chat.
Yeah, I'm typing something too.
And Britany is very friendly, as you know, so you can contact her.
There's my website.
Yeah.
All my films are there if you want to check them out. And I think my contact information's on there too. You can also look me up on Facebook or email me. I love talking about movies, so if you want to talk about movies, I'm up for it.
Britany's got it all going on, and then some. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Britt. Love you.
Love you too.
And great to see people. And someday we will all be together again. That sounds like the ending of a film.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Okay, so bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.